Welcome back everybody to another presidential highlights video. I know it's been a while. My name is Chloe. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. Like, share, comment, follow me on Twitter at Chloe.lb40. I have to do this again because apparently I must have gone over my 18.5 minutes. So I'm just going to get right into this and not do a lot of extra talking this time so I can get everything in. So we are working on Woodrow Wilson's second term in office. So this is Woodrow Wilson Part 2, as you can see in the description below. And please read my descriptions too, because I do put some information in there as well. Okay, so getting into this. March 4th, 1917, Wilson was inaugurated. Wilson reiterates the neutrality on the Great War, but suggests America may likely get involved. However, less than a month later, April 2nd, 1917, Wilson addresses Congress. It was the 65th Congress, opens its first session. Wilson asks to declare war with Germany. On the same day, Jeannette Rankin was the first woman in the House of Representatives, and she was a Republican from Montana. Also the same day, there was a declaration of war. The Senate approves a war with Germany on the 4th with a vote of 82-6. April 6th, the House approves it by 373-50, and Wilson signs it on the 6th. So that all happened on April 2nd. Well, it was under the key event of April 2nd. April 14th, 1917, the Committee on the Public Information. Wilson issues an executive order making Denver the journalist George Creel the head. CPI coordinates propaganda and censorship throughout the war. April 24th, 1917, Liberty Loan Drive authorizes the Secretary of the Treasury, William G. McAdoo, to sell $3 billion in debt at 3.5% to the public. May 18th, 1917, Selective Service Act. It requires all men 21 to 30 to register for the draft lottery. It was the first conscription act since the Civil War. I have to keep an eye on I've got the back of my camera to the mirror so that I can check and make sure that I'm still recording. June 15th, 1917 was a very important day. It was called the Espionage Act. It severely limits freedom of expression, mandates the public criticism of military or government to be punished by $10,000 and or up to 20 years in jail. Now, believe it or not, some of that act is still intact today. So think of what happened on January 6th. All those people should be paying the $10,000 and paying down our debt. January 26, 1917, U.S. troops arrive in France at Saint-Nazaire. I'm not sure why we went to France instead of going to Germany, but whatever. September 5th, 1917, industrial workers of world raids. Feds stage raids of IWW in 24 cities. They seize literature and arrest 10, including William Big Bill Haywood. November 3rd, 1917, fighting at the Rhine. The first engagement in Europe by U.S. forces takes place near the Rhine-Marne Canal in France. November 6, 1917, women win the right to vote. Okay, remember that date, November 6, 1917. It happens in New York in accordance with the state constitutional amendment. Now, that doesn't mean that they win the right to vote, but it doesn't mean that they can vote yet. November 30th, 1917, the 42nd Rainbow Division, comprised of troops from every state in the Union, they arrive in France. December 18th, 1917, the 18th Amendment. It forbids the sale, manufacturing, or transport of alcohol except under special circumstances. January 18th, 1918, Wilson's 14 points, which was objectives for peace during the war, which includes self-determination of nations, free trade, disarmament, a pact to end secret treaties, and the League of Nations to realize collective security. Now remember about the League of Nations too, because that comes up a lot. January 26, 1918, Hoover calls for food conservation. Herbert Hoover calls for 1 meatless day, 2 wheatless days, and 2 porkless days per week. May 16, 1918, the Sedition Act. It couples with the Espionage Act, and it allows the Postmaster General to ban the mailing of publications found to be subversive during the war. It also includes heavy penalties for criticism of the war, of the government. So think about January 6th again. May 29th, 1918, War Industries Board. The agency was designed to coordinate wartime production and transportation. June 4th, 1918, holding Germany at Chateau Thierry, Thierry. U.S. 2nd Division stops Germans' advance on Paris. The same day, countering at Belleau Wood. The U.S. 2nd Division and 4th Marine Brigade stopped German offensive in the Battle of Belleau. August 29th, 1918, the cost of living in New York. The Labor Department states the cost of living jumped 17% from July 1917 to July 1918. September 14th, 1918, Eugene Debs is sentenced. He was a prominent socialist and presidential candidate, sentenced to 10 years for violating the Espionage Act, and he gave an anti-war speech in Canton, Ohio on June 30th. Now remember his name, because his name comes up in a little bit. September 30th, 1918, Wilson defends the women's suffrage, which was the right to vote. So there's number 2 mention of that. October 1st, 1918, global influenza, which kind of couples with COVID. The Spanish flu reaches its peak in the U.S. It was first seen on the East Coast from those returning from war. It claims more than 600,000 in the U.S. and likely more than 20 million globally, which was more than the Great War. November 5th, 1918, Republicans win majorities. They gain 2 seats in the Senate and 50 in the House. November 9th, 1918, Kaiser Wilhelm II abdicates his throne of the German Empire, and there was a song that went along with that called Go Home Kaiser Bill. You can look that up on YouTube, I'm sure. November 11th, 1918, Allied and German armistice. The new German government appeals Wilson for peace from his 14 points speech. November 18th, 1918, Wilson announces the Paris Peace Conference, and he attends it too. November 21st, 1918, Wartime Prohibition Act. So this is the second time this is being mentioned. It bans the manufacturing of alcohol for domestic sale from June 30th, 1919 until demobilization. That may have been when speakeasy started. January 18th, 1919, Paris Peace Conference opens 2 weeks after Wilson is welcomed in Rome and Paris. January 29th, 1919, 18th Amendment was ratified. So Nebraska approves it by 2/3. Nationwide ban on alcohol starts January 16th, 1920. February 14th, so that was Prohibition. February 14th, 1919, Wilson presents the League of Nations Act. On the same day, Schenck versus the U.S. The Supreme Court upholds the Espionage Act, and it establishes civil liberties restricted by government if clear and present danger to law and order. May 19th, 1919, which is kind of funny because it was the 19th Amendment, which says, the right of citizens of the U.S. to vote shall not be denied or abridged, and the U.S. or by any state on account of sex. So that was the whole women's right to vote thing. July 10th, 1919, the Treaty of Versailles and the League of Nations. Peace without rancor fails. Wilson submits the treaty to the Senate. The Senate debates longer than the conference went on for. August 31st, 1919, Communist Labor Party of the U.S. was founded in Chicago. It adopts a platform for Third International as its own. Wilson embarks on the League of Nations tour on September 3rd, which is the next key event, tries to build support to end the war. His first speech was in Columbus, Ohio on September 4th, and November 19th, Senate rejects Treaty 38-53, but approves a separate treaty with Germany in July of 1921. September 4th, 1919, Wilson embarks on the nationwide tour, which is what is different from up here because it says that he embarked on it on September 3rd, but whatever. Again, it was against the advice by his doctors and advisors. The same day, Boston police held a strike. October 2nd, 1919, Wilson suffers a stroke, and it was during his tour in Wichita, Kansas, and he returns to Washington, D.C. October 28th, 1919, Volstead Act. Congress approves over Wilson's veto, and it provides enforcement power of the 18th Amendment, which is prohibition. November 19th, 1919, the Treaty of Versailles fails. December 22nd, 1919, the Red Scare raids. Foreign-born radicals were arrested by the Department of Justice. They were deported from New York Harbor on U.S. transport Buford to the USSR. For those of you that remember, Russia used to be communist. January 2nd, 1920, Palmer's extensive raids. Attorney General A. Mitchell Palmer arrests nearly 2,700 people in 33 cities from the Red Scare raids. March 19, 1920, Treaty of Versailles was defeated again. The Senate defeats the treaty along with Foreign Relations Committee Chairman Henry Cabot Lodge. April 1st, 1920, U.S. withdraws from Serbia, which is what started the World War I, rather. April 15, 1920, Sacco and Vanzetti murder case. Shoe factory workers Frank Parmenter and Alexander Baradelli are murdered in a robbery in South Braintree, Massachusetts. Laborers Nicola Sacco and Bartolomeo Vanzetti were arrested 3 weeks later. May 20th, 1920, Wilson vetoes the end of the war. Congress passes the joint resolution, however. June 8th, 1920, Republicans nominate Harding at the Republican National Convention in Chicago. So Ohio Senator Warren G. Harding, they nominated as president, and Massachusetts Governor Calvin Coolidge as vice president. Those names should ring a bell with you. June 28, 1920, Democrats nominate Cox and Roosevelt. Ohio Governor James M. Cox and New York Franklin Delano Roosevelt as president and vice president, and that happened in San Francisco. August 18, 1920, the 19th Amendment was ratified, which was women's right to vote. And August 26, 1920, the 19th Amendment becomes the law. And August 28, 1920, Harding announces the League of Nations in a speech from his front porch in Marion, Ohio. November 2nd, 1920, Warren G. Harding was elected. Electoral votes were 404, which was 60.3% of the popular vote, to 127 of Cox's, which was 34.1% of the vote. Eugene V. Debs gets almost 1 million votes for the Socialist Party while in jail. Remember, I told you to remember his name. The votes for Debs splits the North from the South again, because Debs got all but Tennessee to vote for him in the South. November 20th, 1920, Wilson wins the Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts to secure lasting peace after the Great War. And January 13th, 1921, the Census Bureau report. First time the U.S. Bureau reports 51% of Americans live in cities and towns of more than 2,500 people. Okay, I got through it. So, I'm probably getting close to the end of my time. I'm definitely end of my notebook here, which I have a new notebook, and that ends the part 2 and Wilson's time in office. So tune back in for the next presidential highlight video, which I don't know when it's going to be because I'm going to start door dashing again, so the videos will be infrequent again. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and start letting you go so I don't go over my time again and my camera shuts off. So stay safe, stay vigilant, stay healthy. You guys have a sunny day. See you on the next one. Class dismissed.